is the Port of Churchill. It's nearly 100 years old, but it may soon get a major upgrade. Churchill Plus is one of Prime Minister Mark Carney's nation-building projects, aiming to become a vital link between here and Arctic routes.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says the federal government will be spending $500 billion on energy, port, and intelligence infrastructure in the near future.
It unlocks, as you just said, LNG. It unlocks, and I salute Premier Canu's initiative here, it unlocks major Indigenous leadership and participation. It potentially...
The latest data from America's busiest ports paints a troubling picture. In May 2025, the Port of Los Angeles processed just over 716,000 containers, a 5% decline compared to the same month last year, marking its lowest volume in over 2 years. Imports were down by 9% and exports dropped 5%. Behind these falling numbers lies a clear and disruptive force. The 145% tariff imposed by Washington on Chinese goods is fundamentally reshaping global trade patterns. By October, major shipping lines had already warned that freight costs per container could increase by an additional $175 to $400 due to new surcharges on shipments from China. This added strain has rippled quickly across the logistics sector, forcing two of the largest U.S. trucking companies, TGS Logistics and GSC Logistics, to shut down. These are signs that America's supply chain is buckling under significant pressure. If even a resource-rich economy like the United States is starting to show cracks in its freight and logistics system, it raises an important question. Is America's long-term competitiveness in the global supply chain now at risk? While U.S. ports struggle, Canada is seeing opportunity in a different direction. As Los Angeles experiences its steepest cargo decline in years, Canada is turning its attention to the remote but strategically located Port of Churchill, situated on the shores of Hudson Bay. This small northern port is quickly becoming central to a bold new vision for Canada's trade future. What sets Churchill apart is its location. It's the only deep water port in North America with direct access to the Arctic Ocean, connected by the Hudson Bay Railway. This isn't just a geographical advantage, it offers a whole new route for global trade. Using this Arctic shipping corridor, Canadian exporters can reach Northern Europe up to 3 days faster compared to using traditional Eastern ports. That time savings is critical. As of 2024, over 75% of Canada's exports still depended on routes heading south into the United States. For Canadian policymakers and business leaders, Churchill represents more than just a port. It symbolizes independence. It's a pressure release valve, giving Canada the flexibility to reduce its reliance on the U.S. market and better manage the unpredictable nature of global trade. Companies like Arctic Gateway Group are taking notice and setting ambitious goals. They plan to double mineral export volumes in 2025 and expand storage capacity to handle more and larger shipments. As a result, Churchill is no longer just a regional asset. It's becoming a national test case for Canada's ability to adapt to and thrive in an evolving global supply chain. At the current pace, Churchill is being transformed from a seasonal outpost into a genuine trade gateway for Canada's key export sectors. The vision is to make it the primary launch point for liquefied natural gas, potash, canola, and grains, commodities that are in increasing demand across Europe and Asia. To realize this vision, Arctic Gateway Group has announced plans to triple its mineral storage capacity. This move signals that the port is outgrowing its traditional role and positioning itself as a permanent link in the global trade network. This strategy also aligns with Ottawa's broader goals, reducing reliance on U.S. ports and protecting Canada from tariff shocks or logistical disruptions. For companies grappling with rising transportation costs, Churchill offers a compelling alternative. A shorter, more direct trade route to Europe that not only cuts costs, but also significantly reduces delivery times, an edge that could make a big difference in competitive markets. Still, Churchill faces serious limitations rooted in its geography and infrastructure. Unlike year-round ports like Vancouver or Montreal, Churchill can only operate for about 4 months, from July to November, when the ice recedes enough to allow safe passage for ships. This narrow window complicates shipping schedules and makes it difficult to secure long-term supply contracts. Financial challenges also loom large. While an $80 million investment package has been announced, experts estimate that the real cost of developing Churchill into a globally competitive port would need to be at least 10 times that amount. And the bulk of those expenses aren't just for port upgrades. They lie in maintaining and modernizing the Hudson Bay Railway, which crosses challenging terrain like frozen tundra and peat bogs. Relocating and upgrading just 250 kilometers of this railway could cost as much as $1.5 billion. On top of that, climate change presents a growing threat. Warmer temperatures are softening the permafrost, increasing the risk of ground subsidence and pushing up annual maintenance costs. These environmental and engineering hurdles are forcing decision makers to take a more realistic view of what Churchill can achieve. Ambition is important, but for the port to succeed long-term, Canada must face the hard realities of nature and finances, challenges that can't be overcome by determination alone. Beyond its economic value, Churchill holds deep symbolic significance for Canadian sovereignty and Arctic policy. To the federal government, the port, the Hudson Bay Railway, and the nearby airport are more than infrastructure. They are key assets in Canada's broader northern strategy. That strategy is backed by legal tools like the Arctic Waters Pollution Prevention Act, first passed in 1970 and expanded in 2009, which allows Canada to assert jurisdiction up to 200 nautical miles offshore. The aim is to regulate shipping, protect the environment, and manage resource development in the Arctic, a region where international boundaries and claims are still hotly contested. However, not every country agrees with Ottawa's interpretation. The United States and the European Union continue to view the Northwest Passage as an international waterway, not Canada's internal waters. They argue it should remain open to global navigation, a stance that contrasts with Canada's more cautious, controlled approach. Within this ongoing debate, Churchill represents far more than commercial opportunity. It stands as a powerful symbol of Canada's Arctic presence and its stake in the future of the region. As global interest in the Arctic intensifies, whether for energy, trade, or security, Churchill reminds us that in today's world, control over infrastructure is also a way to assert national sovereignty. The contrast between Canada and the United States is becoming increasingly pronounced. While Canada is boldly exploring new northern shipping routes, the US is facing mounting challenges at ports that were once seen as powerhouses of global trade. In May 2025, the Port of Los Angeles processed just 355,950 imported containers and 120,196 exported ones, its lowest performance in more than 2 years. Officials openly admit that steep tariffs have played a major role in depressing cargo volumes. Many shipping lines are now avoiding US ports altogether, while American goods are losing their appeal in global markets. Experts warn this isn't just a short-term slump. It reflects deeper, more structural issues in the US trade system. As transportation and logistics costs continue to rise, the long-standing advantages that allowed American ports to dominate Pacific trade are steadily slipping away. In response to these pressures, companies are under increasing pressure to cut costs and build more adaptable supply chains. As a result, it's only a matter of time before more businesses look beyond the US to alternative trade routes. This puts the resilience of America's port system under the spotlight. For decades, US ports were considered dependable gateways to the global economy. But with rising costs and growing policy obstacles, that reputation may be starting to fade. Some manufacturers are already exploring options to reroute their shipments through Canada or Mexico. Others are considering skipping North America entirely, choosing instead to move goods directly between Asia and Europe. Against this backdrop, a critical question emerges. Can Canada's Arctic experiment attract a share of the trade that's now drifting away from US shores? Or will Churchill remain a small-scale project, limited by extreme weather and a brief operational season? Ottawa now faces a pivotal decision, whether to develop Churchill into a full-scale Arctic trade hub or continue treating it as a symbolic experiment. But this decision is about more than just infrastructure spending. It could define Canada's role in the future global trade system. Researchers at the University of Manitoba believe that with enough investment, the Port of Churchill and the Arctic shipping corridor could operate for up to 6 months each year, double its current capacity. Still, the biggest hurdle remains cost. Shipping through the Arctic comes with significantly higher insurance premiums due to harsh weather, thick sea ice, and the lack of refueling or resupply facilities. For many shipping companies, these extra expenses quickly erase the benefits of a shorter route. The financial challenges go even deeper. While an $80 million investment package has already been announced, experts say several billion dollars will be needed to transition Churchill from a seasonal port into a true global hub. That leads to a key question. Who will fund this transformation? Will the federal government take on most of the financial risk? Or will Canada invite private or even foreign investors at the cost of potentially sharing control over a critical trade corridor? Each path comes with long-term implications for national sovereignty and strategic autonomy. If Churchill succeeds, it could become a vital Arctic bridge, linking Canada directly with Europe and Asia, while reducing the country's reliance on congested, tariff-exposed southern trade routes. Such success would not only boost Canada's economic position, but also enhance its leverage in a world where supply chains are increasingly used as tools of geopolitical influence. But failure carries real consequences. It could leave behind incomplete railway upgrades, a strained federal budget, and a sobering reminder that ambition alone can't overcome the limits of nature, geography, and scale. This constant tension between strategic ambition and environmental constraint is precisely what makes Churchill such a unique and high-stakes gamble. It's a place where Canada must weigh short-term risk against long-term strategic opportunity. As Canada-US trade relations continue to evolve, ports and natural resources are becoming more than just economic assets. They're tools of national strategy. For Ottawa, Churchill isn't just a logistics project. It's a declaration that Canada intends to carve out a bigger role in a world that's becoming more fragmented and uncertain. While the US remains Canada's largest trading partner, that relationship is being tested as Canada looks to expand its reach beyond familiar borders. Both Europe and Asia are watching carefully, curious to see whether Churchill can truly become the doorway to deeper trade ties. The bigger question is whether this Arctic route can help Canada meaningfully diversify its supply chains, or if it will ultimately be held back by the region's brutal climate and the massive investment it requires. In the broader picture, the line between trade policy and geopolitics is blurring. Today, shipping routes aren't just commercial lanes, they're strategic assets. Every port, every corridor, carries weight in the global balance of power. In that sense, Churchill is both a bridge to a bold future and a reminder that realizing a vision always comes with challenges. So, what do you think? Is Churchill Canada's chance to redraw its trade map? Or is it simply a difficult test on the country's northern journey?